Hi, welcome to this week's edition of the Blues Talk. Again, John, Dave and myself are going to look back over our schizophrenic performance against the Dragons last weekend. Look forward to our big Heineken Cup or European Cup semi-final this weekend. So boys, 25-22 against the Dragons in Dave Parade. Very poor.
I don't want to despair. It's the hope I can't take. It would be a lot easier to review this Leinster team if we went out and we went through an entire game.
They won a few games.
Or if they won a few games, or if they'd either win or lose by playing shit. But it's this whole, we'll play for 40 minutes in the middle of a match and build your hopes up and then rip them out from under you, like a cheap magician pulling a tablecloth off a table. That's what makes it awkward.
Yeah.
Well, to have a game where 50 minutes in, you're 3 tries to 1, and you're winning by 14 points.
You said at that point, Jay, watching the match?
We've 30 minutes to score the bonus point.
Exactly. That's what everybody was saying, surely. And how could we not do that? Whatever about the Dragons coming back into it, but I was right up until the final whistle, and right until I got that penalty at the end, I was going, we can do this. And all we have to do is score a try. We're going to win. We're going to get 5 points. It shouldn't have been that difficult.
Living back in Leinster 2011, that this team doesn't do that. This team has systematically failed in the last month or 2 months. If you look back over our results, we're leaking tries like a sieve. I think we've conceded 13 tries in 4 games. We've missed, I read a stat today in the Irish Times, 90 tackles in those 4 games. That's bonkers.
9 of them were last week.
Only. And then look at all of our matches in the last few months that we've been in the lead and we've either thrown it away or we've almost thrown it away. Like going back to the Quins match in the Aviva Stadium, we were I think 11-0 up at halftime. And I can go through a list of them. We were even beating Glasgow after coming back magnificently, and we still threw that victory away. And and then there's all the other ones like just the match there last week against Bath. We nearly threw that one away.
This team is a lot like Ulster of a couple of years ago. We are unable to, like you said, a couple of years ago, a Leinster team that was 5 points down with 3 minutes left would have won. Right? Now we have a Leinster team that's 5 points up with 3 minutes to go. Is more than likely to lose.
Well, you know where that is, Dave. It's in the top.
It's in the top 2 inches, and that's
where you
whatever has happened mentally within the minds of the players, and there's obviously been a big failure in the last. We'd say since Christmas. In terms of the defence, because our defence under O'Connor, that's one area where he can.
It was great last year.
He can look at and say, right, that's. But since Christmas, it's been dreadful. It's been simply dreadful. But this Leinster team is not a team that knows how to see out those games the way that it used to do. Now, why it's forgotten it? Because it is mental. It's nothing to do with ability. It's all mental. What's happened to drive that skill from their mind?
I think it's just confidence. I think it's just the team.
Confidence is a huge part of it.
It's confidence, and it doesn't trust itself. Like, do you remember? I mean, we can harp back onto the glory days, but unfortunately, that's all we seem to have. As you said, Dave, I remember standing in the RDS. 5 minutes to go. We need to try to get either a bonus point or to sneak a victory, and we did it because the team believed in what it stood for. It believed in its methods of how to get there. This team just seems devoid of ideas, and it's sad to say, but when you look at the team on paper, it's a bloody good team.
Yeah. But
it's just not functioning.
Well, I do think that just kind of in a way looking back and forward at the same time at the game against Dragons and the game to Toulon. At least the game against Dragons, I think, answered some questions.
We were going great though. Tio was looking.
Tio's looking good. Himself and Darcy together were looking good.
I played the two of them next
Redden
week.
was dreadful.
He tired. Let's face it.
But what I mean is that it answered the question about who starts that game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be Redden. Fanning and.
Fanning was looking great.
Fanning did okay. He was working his arse off, but I think we saw that Fitz and McFadden are going to start. I mean, it did answer a lot of questions in terms of that, but it left questions as well. And the question that's asked is, for 40 minutes in that match, we played some really good rugby, scored a lot of nice tries, but then just stopped doing it. And it would be easier if we stopped doing it at half time. because he could say, oh, well then, whatever, they changed the
Whatever they
tactics
said
or,
at half-time,
or whatever they said at half time. It's obviously... But it happened on the 50th minute mark.
Yeah, it was from 10 to 50. That was when our
But
good period was.
Well, like we still let them off with, we let them into the game. They got 8 points up in the first 5 or 10 minutes. But then, like, I suppose the big talking point of what kind of was the instigator of the demise of the team.
The collapse.
The collapse was Theo's yellow card, which I thought was extremely harsh.
Way harsh. It's one of those ones I've seen them given, but it's,
I could understand the ref giving a penalty.
Penalty, yes.
Because
about
under the wording of the law, he didn't wrap his arms, right? He tried to wrap his arms.
Yeah, but he just hit him so hard.
He hit the guy so hard he was gone.
Yeah.
And
But that's what Trevor Hogan said on the radio
what Bevan
last night.
said as the TMO was ridiculous. I mean,
he's been trying to get Theo banned.
He said he hit him with his shoulder first and then went to bring his arms round. Now, I don't know about you, but I started playing rugby in 1979 when I was 8. Now, that's how I was taught to tackle. Get the shoulder in first, bring the arms around. How else is he supposed to do? Grab him and pull him into him and then just start banging him off his chest or something? It's not like apes mating.
Well, funny, it was Derek Bevan actually that tried, when John Lacey was reffing, I think
tried
the
to call him
Cardiff
back.
match, he tried to call him back and he wasn't having any of it. It was for leading with the forearm, and that was talked about afterwards. A lot of people weren't happy about it, and but he got him this time. I think maybe it's a bit of a, like Derek Bevan used to be a ref. He's an older guy. He's just doesn't like this rugby league element creeping into union and wants to lay down a marker.
Enough fellas from his generation from Wales went
to rugby league. Yeah, I know.
The other side of that is, I mean, just in terms of that, the one thing about Ben Teo is the way he plays the game. He doesn't play the game the way that people had a stereotype of how Ben Teo would play.
No.
That he'd be all about the bosh.
No.
He's not. He's actually been all about the feet.
Yeah.
And
he scored a couple of lovely tries. Maybe we can have a quick look at
before we demolish them all completely.
But it's great to see him. Like, he scored. Is that his third try now of the season?
I thought we were in great shape.
Great
him
feet
and
there
Darce.
for Darce.
Yeah, look.
That was old school Darcy. That was.
Yeah, he had a few flashes as well.
Mm-hmm.
But
at this stage, it was all. I mean, a lot of the stuff we were doing was pretty good.
Wine and roses.
Yeah. But
everybody's making yards there.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking good.
John,
Conan was looking good as well.
You mentioned 2011. This looks like Leinster in 2011. The way they were playing here.
It's in that ballpark, Jason.
Well, every one of them was making
that was
yards.
That was a great little break from Jimmy Goppert.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Goppert had a decent game apart from a few mistakes. Yeah. And that was just balance and a little bit of comedy defending there, but it was just balance.
I think it doesn't matter if Jimmy Goppert goes out against Geelong and scores 55 points, single-handedly wins the game for us, makes a last-minute tackle to stop them even crossing the line. I guarantee you he'll still get criticised on Monday.
Yeah.
But he didn't score 60.
Yeah. No, the guy has played, right, I was looking at it during the week. The guy has played almost 2,000 minutes for Leinster. I don't know, he probably set a record if he keeps starting games. There's 4 games that he didn't play 80 in. 3 of them Madigan started and he came on as a sub, and one of them was the Cast game where he went off at about 65 minutes and Darcy came off.
Played 19 games in the league, lost 7 and drawn 3. So I think the less number of minutes you play in this particular team, the more credit you should have. Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is the guy has really been rallied to. He's been worked to death. He's 300-400 minutes ahead of the next highest minute. And that's even including Leinster and Ireland minutes for guys like Toner.
But still, our results are atrocious, and you can't argue against it. And the people who are on the pitch have to hold their hands up and be responsible for it. And Goppert, unfortunately, has played the most number of minutes. He's the linchpin within the team.
I would agree with that entirely if that were the case for everyone, but it's not. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's guys on that team. It doesn't matter what they do, how badly they do it. I guarantee you, people will be calling for Redden to start.
Nice little break there.
Look. Yeah. He scores great tries like that. He
did it all himself.
And you have to take your hat off to him. He has been doing that since he came here 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. But he's infuriating in
does he,
other ways. Yeah.
He clearly doesn't play to a style of rugby that is winning games for us.
Well, I think that's the problem is that we don't have an out half who does.
That's
exactly
the point.
I mean, we literally don't have a guy on our roster.
And listen, it's going to happen again next season.
He did all that. Look.
Because our two out halves
They're
aren't
gonna
going to
be
be in the Leinster team for the majority of the season.
We'll see him end of October, maybe. You know, that's it.
Well, the other thing
That's
is,
true.
you know, last year he brought Jimmy Gopperth into the team on the back of very few minutes. I mean, he played very few minutes leading up to it.
O'Connor got absolutely excoriated for not playing Gopperth in the build-up games to the big match against Toulon, and then bringing him on. So I wonder what the story will be with.
He may do the opposite. He may throw Madigan in there,
and I presume he'll be castigated for that as well. Not.
He may throw Madigan in there to start. You just wouldn't know what he'll do. It's one of those things where he's got a.
Well, he's got Darcy outside him. I think he's going to go with Darcy and Theo as the centres. So he's got Madigan and Gopper to choose from, and he's got Redden and Boss to choose from.
I wouldn't be so sure he's going to go for Darcy at 12, but you know,
no,
he
possibly
will.
I would.
The other thing is, what he did with that game was he had a calculated gamble. He was obviously thinking, we'll throw these lads in, they'll beat the Dragons, we just get the win, and then we'll have a few guys that we can double job with the Ulster game and the Toulon game. Otherwise, why wouldn't he play all his guys? If he only was fixated on Europe, why wouldn't he play all his best guys this week? Play them get them all running together, play them against Toulon, and then rest them for Ulster.
Well, I think the telling thing in that is why didn't he have?
But now it hasn't paid off because he's got.
Why didn't he have them on the bench? If what you were saying is true, to carry on your point, or at least have them on the bench.
So he could get him out of trouble if he needed to.
Yeah,
well, that would have been a smarter move in my book.
Just in further to this game, I mean, some of the guys selections he made did pay off. I thought Ben Marshall was excellent. Now I still don't think he's a lock. I still think he's a number 6, but I thought he played really, really well.
I don't know, but I've been mulling that one over in my mind as well. I think he could be a good lock. He's okay. He doesn't have that extra inch of height that seems to be crucial at the highest level for a lock. But you know, neither does McCarthy.
No.
Neither does Mick Carney, who we've just signed. No, you know, there's Brad Thorne. You know, they're all 6'5" So you know, I look at the break he made.
Yeah,
that was Mal O'Kelly, and he nearly got away on a second one. Only Geordie Murphy was done for
I like to think
offside, which I didn't think was.
I like to think, in the best sense, it was more Alan Quinlan.
Yeah, it was funny.
Alan Quinlan was only 6'3", though, wasn't he?
We were myself and John were at a night up in Drogheda, an off the ball night, and they had Devin Toner on it, and it just came up in the conversation. He said, "Well, most of the time in the Irish setup, it's Peter O'Mahony that's been lifted by O'Connell and Toner, rather than the big tall second rows winning the ball. It's the second rows lifting the guy."
If you add the combined height of Toner and O'Connell lifting a guy, he's still getting up higher than anyone else. You know, it's only when the props are lifting.
The other side, I mean, the advantage of somebody like Marshall at lock is that you can fling him up in the air.
Yeah.
One guy can throw him up on opposition ball, and that was something we actually did a couple of times that worked out well for us. We did disrupt Dragon's ball quite well. You think about it, and you think about all the areas that kind of went well, and some of them didn't, but most of them went quite. And then at the 50-minute mark, things stopped going well. I mean, obviously there was the sin binning, and then people just, for whatever reason, that just.
What's his name? Faletau came to life.
Yeah.
Just after we scored that try in 50 minutes, Faletau, you could see him go, right, lads, let's have a bit, you know.
Yeah. Well, before
he woke up, he came to life.
Before we went to sleep, we did score one more try too. Got a second.
This was one around 50 minutes, I think.
Almost exactly around 50 minutes.
Set it up. It set it up so we could just run in for the bonus point whenever we wanted.
We had half an hour for the bonus point.
But you would think,
stroll
though,
around and get the bonus
22-8 up with 30 minutes to go.
That's all about balance and feet again, you know.
Yeah.
And it looked like they were kind of semi-interested when he's running through them like that.
Exactly. Now, all we needed to do was that once more. And we were home and housed. They wouldn't have come back at us. They just wouldn't.
I think part of the problem was that he wasn't there for 10 minutes of it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that, we were talking about Leinster, why the old Leinster used to convert these matches into wins and why the new Leinster isn't. And we're talking about the confidence thing and the mental issues.
Yeah.
I mean, when he got after playing the way he was playing, because he was, I mean, apart from the tries he scored, he made a number of breaks and he was playing really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
They saw him go off, and that turned a screw somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, in that kind of fragile psyche.
But he turned around to the ref and said, "What else am I to do?"
Yeah.
Like the commentator.
How else
actually
can you tackle a
mentioned,
guy?
But how else? Exactly. Yeah. But maybe he started thinking, "Hang on," when he came back on. What am I to do?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Rather than trusting what he's been doing for 20 years of playing rugby, maybe he started double checking himself and going, "Am I?"
But he's only 27.
Well, okay, well, I'm sure he started playing rugby when he was 7. So.
He probably did actually. He's a Kiwi.
But no, you're right. I mean, he did, and I'm sure that Leinster team who I believe whose psyche is quite fragile, like that Ulster team was, like Connacht can be on occasion, like Northampton Saints have been in the past. That it was just one more shot across the bows, and it was PTSD.
Yeah, well, you know, the only positive thing you can say is that we've a free shot. Well, we would have had a free shot a lot more next week, but bloody won that game because we wouldn't have. You know, it's kind of do or die now. It's like, whereas before we were having a free shot.
Toulon, but we're not mathematically out of it. Like, well, just check this out. Like,
damn close. Ulster have to lose at least 2, if not
right. Well,
all 3 games.
We play them once, so we have to win all our matches. So
Obviously.
one of them is against Ulster. So if we beat them, then they have to travel to Munster.
No,
Sorry. They have to play Munster,
yeah.
who are also in a scrap to try and qualify to get a home semi-final. So that's by far from being a gimme. Then Ulster's last game is against Glasgow in Glasgow. So
who might be playing for a home
semi-final as well.
Because they've the Ospreys.
Ulster could well go into that Glasgow game, actually, because our last game is against
Edinburgh
away. I mean, and now that has been a graveyard before, but we've gone over there when we've needed a win on the last day of the season and got it. Now, we didn't win the league, but we did get the win. And we did get the 4 tries, or we got 6 that day, indeed. But
well, look, lads, the hardest bit is trying to beat Ulster.
The hardest
5 days after
the only thing I said it before. I said because it's kind of out of our hands, all we can do is, you know, just win our next game. That's all we can do.
Well, Toulon are going to take a bit out of us, and like it's a bit like when we went down to Thomond Park in 2011 after winning the Heineken Cup. I mean,
I presume the lads will be sober this time.
Yeah, well, apart from that.
They won't be stopping in pubs in Moneygall on the way down.
Munster were in the line in the long grass watching us winning the Heineken Cup going, yes, let me at them. Ulster are going to be lying whether we win or lose. Well, if we win, we won't really care about Ulster. But
that match will be so insignificant if we beat Toulon. Like, do you know what I mean?
Of course.
Like we put emphasis on it, but the players won't.
Yeah,
let's face it.
It could work 2 ways. I mean, if we beat Toulon, we could shine the match off because, you know, other things to do, or it could lift a weight off players' shoulders,
possibly,
and free them up mentally and get that.
But I guarantee you, if we come home from Toulon on Sunday night after let's hypothetically say we win, there ain't any chance that O'Connor will play more than 5 of the team that played against Toulon.
No.
Like, so
that would have final
let's put
to
it
look
into
forward
perspective. This match against Ulster only is important if we lose.
We lose, yeah.
No, that's valid.
Absolutely.
So anyway, we do play Toulon.
Who?
So no pressure there.
No, but they're top of the top 14.
Yeah.
They beat Grenoble away last weekend. But they have lost. I looked at the league table. They lost 8 games
One
this
of
season.
only 2 profitable clubs in the top 14.
Yeah. Well, Toulon, it's a big ask. I mean, if we played them 10 times in Marseille, how many would we win?
1. We only have to win 1.
Maybe 2. It has to be that 1 or that 2.
But do you not think that they're far from invincible?
Of course they're not.
There's a couple of issues around them, right? First thing is you look at the roster, and the roster is...
They're slightly invincible.
Yeah. The roster is... I mean, you have to take the whole process. I mean, the roster is stellar. I mean, it really is. It's like if you were a kid with your top trumps, putting together your top trumps rugby team. You wouldn't come far away from the Toulon team. But the thing is, whilst there are great professionals in that team, there's also guys who are there for a payback.
And there's also guys getting old. Who are fantastic. Like,
it's not the young... It's not... Ali Williams, Backy's Botha, Joanne Smith, even Freddie Michalak aren't the young blades that they once were.
True.
Or in some cases never were, but young anyway.
But they've got, you know, guys equally good on the bench who are going to come trundling on just fresh on 60 minutes. So it's a massive ask.
We have Tom Denton.
Well, there you go. And Tom Denton,
Michael
we had a conversation about him a couple of weeks ago. Honest player, and if he has to come on for 10 minutes at the end of the game,
You should get 10 minutes of all action from him.
You'll be relying on him, and he won't let you down. But stick him next to Becky's boat on a stat machine. And
Yeah, there's only one winner there. The thing is, I mean, Wasps had a cut at them.
Mm-hmm. That's the only way to play them.
It is.
What do we have to lose? We have to go out and give it to Holly.
You see, it's different.
Yeah.
It's different than it was last year. I mean, Leinster got a lot of criticism last year about how the game eventually panned out, and the idea was that we didn't have a game plan. We did have a game plan. It was just a game plan to play a different team to the one that spent 75 minutes on the pitch. Because I think that the injury to Wilkinson last year completely changed how Toulon played that game, completely and utterly. We were set up to play the Wilkinson's Toulon, not Gitto's Toulon. This year, they're capable of playing any which way. So the only thing we can do is just cut.
But people look at last year's match and they say, "Oh my God, we're hammered by them, we're destroyed."
We weren't.
We were 6-6 at half time.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? We were still
destroyed for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, but we played everything into their hand.
Yeah.
We gave them the ball. What we have to do is attack them whenever we can and not give the ball away. But in looking back at that match against Dragons, but a lot of the time we went into contact, we lost the ball. Like, you have to do the fundamentals correctly, which we haven't been doing this season.
And the thing is, loose kicking to Toulon back three. Now, I'm not sure who one of the wingers would be, because they have so many to pick from. But I'd be pretty certain that two of their back three will be Lee Halfpenny, who apparently is fit, and Dylan Armitage. Mm-hmm. So kicking to those is just pointless, because they're pretty good fullbacks.
Yeah, up into row F.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kick Dylan Armitage up into row F. I don't think anyone can complain.
Exactly. Yeah.
His ma, perhaps. That's about it. Well, I think they're far from unbeatable, but it'll be a huge ask.
Oh, it's a massive ask.
It'll be
this is bigger
than Toulon, or bigger than Toulouse in 2006.
This is bigger than Clermont in Bordeaux.
Or Clermont in Bordeaux.
Reminds me a lot of this season.
Both
you
of
mentioned
which we
it.
won.
You mentioned it before, Dave. This season is very, you did as well, John. It's very reminiscent of 2009. Even the teams that were in our group. Similarly, I remember being phoned up by the Irish Times, just by a fluke, and asking, what do you think is going to happen for the match against Munster? And, I said, well, we have to have the best day of the season, and they have to have one of the worst. And I still think that would stand true on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I don't see anything wrong with saying that. I mean, that's the reality of the thing. I mean, we've come full circle in a way. We're back to where we were in 2009. I mean, even with the Shonky performances and the halfback conundrum and the coach issues and the whole thing. I mean,
but then if you do compare those two teams,
the 2009 team was actually
different.
Yeah.
Like, and the class in the team.
Oh yeah.
I
mean, Johnny Sexton was the backup out half.
Yeah, well, we class in the back line.
Sean O'Brien was on the bench that day.
Yeah,
he was. We had Rocky Elsom and all that good stuff, and Jamie Heaslip was there. But we didn't have the props we have now. We didn't have 4 international props.
No,
we didn't have.
We had 2 very good ones though.
We had 2 very good ones, but we're a different type of team.
Yeah.
We're not such a backs orientated team, which is unfortunate, because that's where we've got to win it. We've got to get the ball wide and take them on. We're not going to pound them to death in the forwards. We're just not. They've got 8 big fuckers, and if you are going to go at them all day, they're going to be able to take it all day, and they're going to bring on 6 more big fuckers when they get tired.
I think
the first couple of minutes will be instructive, because, like you say, we're not going to pound them in the forwards. But we might need to pound them in the forwards, because Wayne Barnes could be pounding them in the forwards. You never know with Wayne.
You don't.
And at least
it's a lottery, isn't it?
We've got a lot of players who have done an awful lot of video work on Wayne Barnes as referee in recent times. I mean,
Sean, he keeps his mouth shut, it'd be grand.
Yeah, Sean Cronin was talking about it today, like the amount of video review work they did after the Welsh match on how Barnes refereed the game as opposed to how he was expected to referee the game.
And front rows are the same. Something we might suffer from, and it happened there in one of the scrums against the Dragons as well, where we were penalised for having a very good loose head. That happened in the Wales game. Like, we were getting the shove on the loose head side, so the scrum was moving in that direction, and penalised for having a good scrum. So, you know, hopefully that won't be the case. Hopefully Wayne will also have done his video work.
This is a mistake I think that Leinster have made. I don't think back in 2009 there was a lot of, in the lead up to the match, there was a lot of voices saying a lot of things at the behest, surreptitiously, of Leinster rugby, in order to influence small things in small ways. I can't believe that Leinster rugby haven't got guys in the media every single day saying things about how Wayne Barnes is going to referee the match. You know, because all you need is 1%. That's all you need. And if you can put an idea into his head that the reason why the scrum is going back, why the Leinster scrum is always turning, is because Cian Healy is so good.
Yeah.
That might settle in there. It doesn't have to be tell Wayne Barnes
Or Jack McGrath.
Or Jack McGrath. It's there. Referee management is as important a part of any part of game management on the thing, and I'm not sure we're doing it that well this week because I haven't. It's already Tuesday night and I haven't seen a whole lot of it. Maybe Sean Cronin today is the start of it. I don't know.
We shall see.
Yeah, but it seems to be a lot more underplayed than previous seasons.
Yes, yeah. I can't understand why, because I mean, this is a battle between the last 5 European Cup winners, if you know what I mean, or last 4 European Cup winners.
Yeah.
Or 4 of the last 5. Sorry, no, last 4. They're
5 of the last 6.
Yeah.
It's last 4. It's in the south of France where every journalist surely wants to go on a jolly. It's a huge game. It's a really big game. It's the old way of rugby, personified to a certain extent by Leinster. The representative team against the nouveau riche of Toulon. The if you like, the English
trumps.
Premier Leagueisation of rugby.
But there's been an awful lot of emphasis on the negativity of the Pro 12, you know, on our results in the Pro 12, and in other clubs and other seasons that seems to be brushed aside, and it's all about the European Cup. Whereas, like for instance, last year Munster got to the semi-final, but very little was kind of about their form in the Pro 12 and their league position. It was. I think it was almost insignificant.
The last 2 seasons, in fact, I think the previous season they were 6th.
But there's very little mention of that. Whereas all the negativity, but oh my God, and you know, even last night on the RTE program, you know, they were giving out about the season ticket sales. You know, like
they don't have a clue what the season ticket sales are. Well, there's two elements to that. One is Leinster have always prided themselves as a team that would at least try a leg in the league.
Yeah.
Right. The other side of that is Leinster had to try in the league because generally we were getting our arses handed to us in Europe.
Yeah.
Right, and it was a way of differentiating ourselves from Munster.
Well, I mean, we've been in the last. There's been 5 finals of the Pro 12, and it's current, and we've been in them all. Like that tells you its own story. That we take it serious. We've been in 2 Heineken Cup finals and a Challenge Cup final in those intervening years as well.
Plus, you know, if you go back to 2007, like 2006, Ulster won the league. 2007 Ospreys, we won it in 2008. Munster were off. That was the years Munster were off winning the Heineken Cup. They weren't really taking the league seriously, and maybe, like you said, maybe it was a necessity that we had to do it because we weren't getting so far in Europe. But we have been taking it seriously ever since those days. In fact, I think we said it last week. 11 years since we've come below 3rd in the league, and we're guaranteed to come below 3rd in the league.
I remember talking to
at this stage
a former member of the Leinster marketing department, and he was talking about how people were upset that Leinster weren't playing entertaining rugby, and I said to him, well, you know, the Leinster brand was built on, you know, this exciting flowing rugby, and he said it had to be. It couldn't be fucking built on trophies.
Yeah,
you know, because we didn't have any.
It kind of is a bit of a fallacy because, you know, what breeds success is success, and you know, moving from 2,500 people in Donnybrook to whatever 15,000 on a bi-weekly basis in the RDS is because the team is successful. And really, let me look at Leicester. Leicester get 20,000 or more through their turnstile average. They don't play exciting, sexy rugby, but they win. And Munster, they win, and winning puts bums on seats.
That's the reality of the situation. People are saying, there's been a fall off in attendance, and there has. I mean, and
there will be when you stop winning.
And when you stop winning, there will be. And the
floating voters.
But I guarantee you, we beat Toulon, and you won't be able to get a season ticket for Leinster for love nor money. You know, that's just the way it'll be. I mean, there's a core support there. It's about 9,000 people who will buy their season ticket no matter what. If Leinster are good, if Leinster are bad, if Matt O'Connor's the coach, Matt O'Connor's not the coach, doesn't matter. They'll buy their ticket because they're the hardcore. hardcore is a bit of a snobby word. What I mean is they're the people, they're the core support group. They're the ones who turn up on a Thursday to watch a game against Debray, right? On top of that, you have a varying number that varies from 3,000 to 5,000 who buy season tickets on top of the hardcore every year, and that number depends pretty much on how the team did the season beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see it in the Viva. Like, you know, there was 40,000 at the last two matches, say, against Bath and Harlequins.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that means that it doubles or just slightly doubles from what regularly goes to the RDS that goes to the Viva, because it's a big day out and you bring the family and all the rest of it. But the fact is that we do get a hard time, or, you know, I get the wrong end of the stick in the media, because, like, when you look at, you know, the RTE programme the other night, they were just so critical of Leinster's performance, and rightly so, in the league. But however, they didn't give any praise to Leinster getting to the semi-final of the European Cup.
Don't have any rights to that.
That's true. Well, yeah.
Yes, it could be just
They
that cynical.
they don't have the rights to the Pro 12.
They have highlight rights to it. I mean, that may be an overly cynical point of view, although I don't think so. But let's be honest. I mean, RTE particularly has never had to search too hard to find a stick to beat Leinster with. When we were winning, we were arrogant. When we were losing, we were dilettantes. Now we're not doing either. We're kind of, you know, neither fish nor good red meat as far as they're concerned.
Yeah, well, look, I don't care.
Well, I mean, there's rumours today that Kane Douglas is not going to make it.
Apparently,
Apparently
it's a bit more than rumours, wasn't it said at the press conference that he was out?
Yeah, I missed that. But Jennings as well, isn't it?
Jennings is questionable. Kane Douglas and Rhys Ruddock are out. Everybody else is available for selection.
Rhys Ruddock's out for the season.
Yeah.
Doubt they're going to select Kevin McLaughlin, but you know, he's probably fit by this stage as well. Although you never know, you just never know. I mean, you can't throw him into a game like that. But I'm just struck by the fact that with Geordie Murphy and Sean O'Brien, 2 6'2" lads, I know you can't just go down to height and all that, but you know, a 6'5" Kevin McLaughlin in there might, or even a Ben Marshall, or a, you know,
Ben Marshall, Kevin McLaughlin. Kevin McLaughlin's the expert at wrecking opposition ball.
Well, Schmidt put a lot of faith in him.
And
like he even played McLaughlin when he took over with Ireland and in those autumn internationals where they were.
He was certainly Schmidt's man in terms of.
Whereas he doesn't seem. I know he's been injured, but he doesn't seem when he has been fit. He doesn't seem to feature too highly in O'Connor's radar.
He's been very injured though. That's the thing. I mean, he's not my favourite player. But one guy who actually got a fair bit of criticism last week that I don't think he deserved, because I think he ran himself into the absolute ground, was Dominic Ryan.
He was knackered. They were all knackered.
He was knackered in that last fight.
It wasn't just him that was taking the ball static and walking towards the opposition, but he was probably the most high profile looking,
because he did it a couple of times. Because, well, in fairness to Ryan, the reason for that is because he was the guy who went looking for the ball. He wasn't hiding.
Well, the other reason for it was the Dragons' defence was very hard up. It was at the end of the game in particular. Like, they really had something to play for. They were trying to keep us out for obvious reasons. They'd gone ahead with a kind of fortuitous score off the back of poor Al Fanning's mistake on the knock on in our 22. It was Faletau came up off the back of that scrum, and they got a try from it. But from then on, they were defending like demons, and they were like us against Saracens a few years ago in the Heineken Cup, where they were just not going to let us into their half. And because the clock had gone, we couldn't kick. We couldn't do it. We had to carry it into their half. We had to carry it.
And
all
that's
the way.
why Ryan was.
And they were knackered, and they were also bereft of ideas, because the Dragons were just fanned out across the pitch in midfield, and there was no way past them, and you couldn't kick over them. You had to rely on some kind of sleight of hand, pulling them some way, and we just didn't have the resources to get them into rucks or
the wherewithal in this team.
But having said that about Tommy Ryan, I wouldn't start him. I wouldn't involve him, to be honest with you, against.
Well, he's probably going to bench with Jennings out.
Because, I'll tell you, possibly, but I'll tell you why. Because, like you say, if we want to run this team into the ground, we're going to need guys who are a bit more mobile, a bit quicker with their hands, and maybe a bit more in the top 2 inches than Dominic Ryan does.
Well, if you're starting Geordie Murphy, Heaslip and O'Brien, who are you putting on the bench?
Conan
on the bench. Okay.
He has that advantage of mobility, and he seems to have a better big game picture, or picture of the game, the big picture of the game than Ryan does. Ryan can be a bit. We've said it before. If Ryan will always find a man to run into, kind of thing. And maybe sometimes you need that.
You do.
I just don't think we need it, because a lot of these Toulon guys, if you run into them, you're not running out.
Yeah.
So we're going to play, the biggest game that O'Connor has played, well, possibly with the exception of the Pro 12 final, but I'd say it's actually a bigger game under O'Connor's reign. And we still don't know what his centre partnership's going to be, what his half-back partnerships are going to be, back row. Like, it's just such a strange... Like, you watch the Six Nations and you go, you could possibly name the team a week out and say, well, that's going to be, barring injury, that's going to be the starting 15 of any nation. And similarly,
not France.
Well, not France, no, that's true. But Toulon, I know they have got so many stars that you can just throw them up in the air, and whoever lands feet first, it could get.
They basically throw the jerseys up in the air and call it rushing.
Yeah, but pretty much most teams you can say we know what our starting 15 is. I honestly couldn't pick the team, but I couldn't tell you.
Well, I can tell you what I'd pick, and I can tell you what I think Matt O'Connor would pick.
I think that, for me, personally, the game against Dragons clarified a lot.
Matt O'Connor said it did anyway. He said a few fellas improved their case and a few others
I'm not sure if if my thoughts would be in line with Matt's or in line with John's, but for me, I took a lot of clarity out of the game. Well, not a lot of clarity. I took a certain amount of clarity. I still don't know who's going to play 10. Haven't a clue. No. Absolutely have no idea.
Same here.
I'm not even sure who I'd pick.
Jimmy is nailed on.
I don't even know who I'd pick, to be honest with you. I'd probably go for Ian out of misplaced patriotism, but I'm not sure who I'd go for in terms of any other reason.
Yeah, I have favoured for the last few games Madigan, Darcy, Fitzgerald, but I think Theo really put his hand up last week, so it'd be, for me, if it was me, not what I think Matt O'Connor's going to pick, I would pick Madigan, Darcy, Theo, and I'd have Fitzgerald at 11.
Yeah, I'd be quite happy. I'd concur with that entirely.
Fergus on the wing,
or
Dave Kearney on the other wing, rather, or Dave Kearney, don't know, obviously Rob at fullback, and then whoever of Fergus or Dave Kearney don't make it, being on at 23 on the bench.
I tend to go along with that, very much similar to that.
And you can put Kirshner on the bench then as well.
I think who's your halfback, as the Antipodeans call it?
Boss has to start.
I think so. Yeah.
And Redden to come on, if we can manage to get them to move around and tire them out. If we can manage to do that, Redden to come on with 20 to go. If depending on where the game is, if he comes on fresh, we've got some hope. And we're still in the game. We've got some hope of
he has to have spent a week box kicking though.
But like
2 matches, lads.
But O'Connor, it seems so reluctant to use the bench
as well.
Like I remember watching the match and we were behind and and I
Fitzgerald should have come on earlier.
I saw him standing on the side.
Gumming to get on.
Luke McGrath as well.
Aren't you getting them on? And I agree with you. I mean, Luke McGrath, like Redden, I thought was exhausted at the end of that match.
Luke McGrath had a few great touches and saved our ass. Kept our game alive a couple of times in the few minutes he was on. And he was only on 5 minutes or something, less than 5 minutes.
It's hard as well, though. I suppose it's. I presume O'Connor's thinking would be that, Owen Redden's a multi-award-winning player. Can he close this game out? Who better? Yeah. But the thing is, the mind might still be willing, but the flesh may well be weak at this stage.
Yeah, its flesh is 20 minutes in it, no problem.
Oh, that's 20 minutes. What I'm saying is in terms of what O'Connor's thought process was last week. The problem is, everybody's assuming that we're going to lose both our scrum halves to the World Cup.
We may not.
We may not if they keep playing the way they're playing.
Yeah. Well, let's go back and talk about the league for a few minutes.
No.
Let's
talk about Europe. There's another match in Europe. Who else is playing?
Saracens.
Can't remember. Saracens and Clermont.
I don't want to talk about the league, Jay.
Oh, well, no, I want to go back, but we will talk about the Clermont Sarries match. Just all of our rivals, but won with bonus points, exaggerating the lead even more.
I know the feckin' cheeky monkeys, a lot of them.
But once again, Connacht failed to.
The welcoming buttocks were open in the west.
They were a bit.
Actually, that's not
terrible. Another terrible TMO decision was when Pienaar was rolling the ball back, and that constitutes putting downward pressure on the ball.
That's what I said about Connacht wasn't fair. I thought that was a cracker of a game.
It was a great game, yeah.
There was some very good rugby on at the weekend, actually. I'll come to La Rochelle Stade Francais in a bit. But
you obviously didn't watch Munster against Edinburgh.
I did. I watched that game as well. No, that wasn't. But
it was a rout. Munster looked very good.
Yeah, Edinburgh looked completely disinterested. But then I suppose, I think there's an element here with Edinburgh that used to be true of Edinburgh and Glasgow. Glasgow now have got their own, if you like, they have their own reasons for doing things. There's no Scottish selections to be made, so why would Edinburgh Scotland players bother their arses?
Mm.
The Six Nations is over.
Yeah.
There is a World Cup coming up.
But sure, there's only got so many players. He has to pick them all. He has no choice in the matter. They know that. I mean, the only one who really should be trying is David Denton.
Yeah. Claire Balding is
not trying that much.
No, but he's the only one who should be, because he's the only one that there's an option to pick someone else instead of him. The rest of them don't need to bother their arses. They know
actually, Strauss qualifies just before the World Cup.
That's right, Adrian Strauss, yeah.
Not Adrian,
not Adrian Strauss, whatever his name.
Josh Strauss,
yeah.
He's
I thought you were talking about
to displace.
I thought you were talking about Richard Strauss's brother.
Yeah,
the centre.
He's muck, according to everybody in Scotland.
Is he?
Mucker than muck. I've given out to them and said, "Well, lads, you can't give out about him. He's Richard Strauss's brother." Well, yeah, unfortunately, and it's not Adrian. Adrian is the hooker.
It's not Adrian. That's the cousin.
He's the first cousin. Yeah. But anyway, the Scots are not best pleased with R. Strauss's brother.
No. But
he's a centre, by the way.
Edinburgh didn't put up much of a fight. The Ulster Connacht game was a good game, I thought. Anyway,
it was a great game. Yeah.
Our game, if you were neutral, you probably would have enjoyed
very
it.
Exciting game.
It had all sorts of.
And look, fair play to the bloody Dragons. Whatever about us losing, I think they won it. In fairness,
what was it? A former teacher called it swings and rainbows.
Bicycles and balconies.
Yeah, so anyway, the other semi-finals, obviously Clermont Sarries. You just hope that Clermont have a bit of revenge brewing up inside from last year.
So.
Well, they were beaten
32 million budget versus 41 million debt.
46-6 was the result last season in Twickenham.
That was the most in Clermont's long history of embarrassment, and there have been a lot of embarrassments in Clermont's history, just because of the way that
they normally go down swinging, though. They didn't.
That's what I'm saying. They normally go down swinging. This was a capitulation.
Yeah.
So this is the most embarrassing moment in their long history, by a long chalk.
Well, they have a new head coach. They have a new forwards coach who might want to make a point or two against.
I thought you were going to say who might want to come back to Dublin.
Maybe not.
No, I wish.
But you never know. Give him another year's experience, which actually is something that has been raised recently about our coach, and the fact that he's going to be here for another year more than likely, or at least until next Christmas for sure. It might be a good time post World Cup, or maybe at the end of this time next year might be a good time for a coach, if we're not doing well, to come in and revitalise us.
Yeah, I saw a quote from the Irish Times today saying, "Who'd want the Leinster job?" What that bullshit!
Well, this is it.
Every other club is in the same situation. Most clubs in Britain and in France are going to contribute a large number of their squad to the World Cup. Most
not
clubs,
as big as us.
Maybe not as big as us, but that means that there's going to be a very, very high caliber of player going to the World Cup who will then return. That's in your squad.
Of course.
Who play, who are internationals. They're all going to be in the same situation of 2 weeks break between the Six Nations and the semi-final, quarterfinals of the Heineken Cup. Like, they're all in the same boat.
No, they're not, because not every club is going to be in the European Cup.
Okay, fair enough. But the ones that you want to...
I don't think there will be...
But we're also going to have a shit group. But the point I'm making is that if you look at Kidneys Ireland, they came very low in the Six Nations 2013, were beaten by Italy, they were on the floor. It was kind of a good time to take the reins for someone like Joe Schmidt, because the team obviously had a bit of go in it.
Yeah, it was a good team.
It was a good team. Leinster are pretty much the same. There's there is the makings of a good team in there. For whatever reason, Matt O'Connor hasn't had a good season this year. Somebody else, a new voice in the dressing room, is bound to have, new coach syndrome, bound to get a bit of a bounce, whether it's at Christmas or whether it's September 2016.
2/3 of Premiership teams
I
that
think people
change their
would be
coach
breaking
who are
the
in the
door
relegation
down
zone and change their coach.
to
2/3
coaches.
of them get relegated. There's a myth about the new coach bounce. It doesn't actually exist really,
Really?
unless you hire Tony Pulis, who's just a really good coach, and he's just an awkward bugger. That's why he's always out of a job.
Yeah, but you know,
but the thing is, I think there does need to be a new voice in the Leinster dressing room. The problem is, it doesn't necessarily need to be at the top.
But
well, I think that's something. I think that Leinster Rugby will, as an organisation, will have a lot of. If we don't have a good end of season, we'll have a lot of scope to bring in coaches underneath Matt O'Connor.
The question is, how do you handle that? Because I think one of the areas where we agree that there is an issue as regards coaching would be the forwards coach. But Leo Cullen is one of the greatest heroes Leinster Rugby has ever. Nobody has done more for Leinster Rugby than Leo Cullen.
Mm-hmm.
So how you approach that, it has to be something that he
did
wants.
sign a 1-year contract, though, didn't
I know he did, yeah, but I think he should have done what the other lads did.
why didn't he go and coach Black Rock College? If you know, just
I
leave
think
it as a
he should have
start?
done what the other lads did.
Go to France.
Go to France.
Well-
He would have had they love that kind of second row in France, and they turned him into coaches. I mean, he would have had no problems getting a job in France.
Still wouldn't, probably.
Probably still wouldn't. But, I see. The thing is, I mean, all a French will look at and go, semi-final of the Heineken of the European Cup. Yeah, you know.
Take it.
But maybe he's probably thinking that and saying, "Well, how can you sack me when I get to the semi-final of the European Cup?"
Yeah. Well, I
Who
think
knows?
I wouldn't sack him, but he does need someone in there with him.
Yeah. Well, I just thought it was interesting because it was the first time I've seen comments from O'Connor since he's come here that he actually had a go at someone in public. I'm sure he has goes on the training pitch and the privacy of a changing room, but it's the first time I've seen it in the press.
You ever go?
He just had a go. He said, and it was done in a veiled way, but he had a go at the players. He said some put their hands up, some didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I noticed that quote. Yeah.
And he hadn't. I haven't seen him be critical of the players in all of the rubbish performances over the last year and a half. And maybe it's time, or maybe he's just losing patience, and maybe it's time now that he'll lose the nice guy persona and get.
You
tough.
see a bit of Checker coming out who had no problems throwing a guy under a bus if he needed.
Or Schmidt. I mean,
Schmidt was the
Schmidt
same.
comes across as a very pleasant,
Amiable character.
lovely fella, but
He's a school teacher.
But as hard as nails
Like
in the privacy of a
most,
changing room.
like most serial killers.
You're
But
saying
no,
he's a sociopath, Dave?
well, no, I'm just saying in terms of that. But in terms of, will there be changes? I'm not sure there will be. There could be some down within the body of the organisation, not necessarily at the top. There might be more benefit from that. I mean, if you have a situation where you have a specialist defence coach coming in, because this year our defence has not worked. I mean, that's baked in the obvious.
Well, like the other side of what I was saying about us being an attractive proposition to come in as a coach when we're on our knees, if you like, or on a down side of a spiral. The other side of that is it's good to have somebody who's getting the shit anyway to take the flak during a World Cup year when we're going to be missing all our players, and because the flak that Matt O'Connor is getting, he's getting it anyway.
Yeah.
If no matter what
like
we
Leinster,
do at this stage, he's going to
Leinster
get
don't
flak.
have a history of going out into the market and saying, "Oh yeah, do you know what? We're going to go and get the World Cup winning coach."
No.
They just don't do
It's not
that.
how it's done.
Like it's all been quite. If you think back, no one ever heard of Checa. Probably no one had
Heard of
really
Joe
heard of Joe Schmidt.
Matt
unless-
O'Connor was the high profile.
Matt O'Connor
guy.
was a high profile one, but even then he wasn't the head coach
No,
of
in
Leicester.
relation to the other two, he was the
Yeah,
high
he
profile.
was,
guy.
yeah, I agree.
I remember he was originally tagged for that Checa job, or was originally favoured for it anyway. Was a guy very much in the same profile as Checa and Schmidt, although a bit more high profile, with John Callard, if you recall. Another guy who was a kind of a young, hungry guy.
Yeah, well, we seem
He was
to go
England
for those.
under 18 coach. Or
Yeah,
something
at the
like
time,
that.
yeah, he'd only retired a couple of years, but that was the model that had been decided on and kind of worked.
So I don't see them going out after the World Cup and saying, "Oh, we have to get some former Springbok coach or some former All Blacks guy." I just don't see that.
I don't see them changing the
Well,
coach.
the other
I
thing,
see them making changes to the coaching staff, but I don't see them changing the coach.
the other thing we've said as well is like Matt O'Connor is a backs coach, but the guys who've done really well under him have all been forwards, possibly down to his kind of conservatism in his game plan. But all the guys that are now going into second year in our academy are all backs and mostly centres.
But the thing
And
is,
they are guys who could really deliver for us. Now, whether that's the
under the
reason,
tutelage of
of Girvan
Girvan,
Dempsey. Whether that's the reason, because they were all in first year, that they haven't had any game time, or they haven't, they've played A's, they've played,
Well, they're going to have to get an out half to play next season
year,
because we're going to. What is it? Is it 8 games? What is he?
Carl Marsh.
We've all remember he used to play
him.
in a 10 5 years ago, and it wasn't.
It was a bit like watching Matt O'Connor's Leinster. It was like some of it was good, some of it was bad.
There's 6 Magners League, or where am I going? There's 6 Guinness Pro 12 matches, and going back to the last millennium, the last World Cup maybe. There's 6 games now during the 6 league games during the World Cup. Yeah. So that's what you've got to get through. Nobody else is going to have as many players missing as us, but they're all going to have some missing. Our second string players should be of a higher calibre. Unfortunately, they've proved that they're not in the period over the Six Nations. But
the thing is, I mean,
maybe we can turn that around.
People talk about, is Leinster an attractive proposition? Ironically, I think Matt O'Connor has transitioned the team very well from the team he took over to the team he will leave, whether it's this year or next. And he took over a team with, Brian O'Driscoll going, lots of guys getting older, Johnny Sexton gone, a lot of guys injured, Leo Cullen gone, and you look at the situation now where if a guy starts on day one next, we say Matt O'Connor wins the Heineken Cup, and in a final fuck you to all the people who've been criticising, bears his arse on a victory bus through Dublin and rides off into the sunset, and a new coach has to be appointed, right? The first day he's there, he'll have Johnny, or he won't necessarily, but he'll see the pegs on the thing. Johnny Sexton will be there, Ian Madigan will be there. All those young guys you talk about are a year older in the academy. But the thing is, he'll look at the half dozen front row guys. The 17 or 18 back row guys. Yeah. He'll go, where the hell are all the locks? But the Leinster team is actually in a healthier position now, personnel wise, than it was when Matt O'Connor took over. Or sorry, it will be next season than when Matt O'Connor took over.
I'm really intrigued to see next season how Matt O'Connor and Johnny Sexton get on, because for 2 reasons. One, most people probably say, "Oh, well, you wouldn't expect Johnny Sexton to take that kind of shit."
Johnny Sexton hired the guy.
Well, let me finish. The other side of that is Matt O'Connor has not had a fully formed out half, if you like, who's good, has a fabulous all round controlling game at 10. He hasn't had the what's the word? The benefit or the
pleasure.
The pleasure or the luxury. That's the word I was looking for. He hasn't had the luxury of that. He hasn't had the luxury of a fully formed game controlling.
We had Jimmy Goppert in a bucket.
So
Eddie Heckanui.
if the 2 of them got on well, I would actually love to see them have a good season together. Just like you said, as a big thank you to everybody else who may or may not be right about Matt O'Connor. I mean, he's obviously done some poor stuff and some good stuff, but I just love to see that. And also Sexton is the man to develop these guys in the centre and get them into shape. Who else would you be? He's a narky bollocks, but perfect as an out half to have guys like that. To mentor guys like Ringrose and Tom Daly.
McFadden was, I remember he's been interviewed, but no, actually it was Ian Madigan, and he was saying the biggest influence in his career was Nasiwa. And he said he was fantastic.
There you go. There's another man who could bring those guys on.
People forget that it was Johnny Sexton was one of the senior players who met with and interviewed, and because that's how Mick Dawson provides names, and it's the guys who go out and do it because it's the Ireland burnt.
I'm surprised if they included him since I was leaving though.
He was a senior player. He was part of the leadership group in Leinster Rugby.
I know he interviewed Schmidt.
Yeah. Apparently he gave him an absolute terrible time in that kind of interview. Schmidt was convinced that he was no way he was getting the job because Sexton was questioning him down to, pretty much the colour of his laces. But that's I think that Johnny Sexton's that kind of guy. I think that's why himself and Schmidt were kind of two sides of the same coin, because they were both so absolutely obsessive.
Well, thanks a million for watching, and if you're going over, have a safe trip, and thanks a million, boys. Cheers.